In this fortnight's episode, the DNC WikiLeaks Edition, we talk about the big DNC WikiLeaks email drop, what's in the news with stories on guns in Europe, a bunch of police misconduct, guns in Massachusetts, and freedom of speech, and a segment with some news on my future endeavors in podcasting.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. Coming to you from the state that is the home of the world's largest cupcake at 1,224 pounds, I kid you not, this is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Revolution needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at TheLavaFlowPod. This is episode 42, the DNC WikiLeaks Edition, and it's Tuesday, August 2nd, 2016. When at least 680 people have been killed by police already this year. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. With perfect timing, Julian Assange of WikiLeaks released tens of thousands of emails from the Democratic National Committee just days before the DNC was set to crown Hillary Clinton as the Democratic presidential nominee. These emails show that the DNC worked directly against Bernie Sanders and his campaign in an effort to ensure that Clinton would receive the nomination, and this all began as early as March 2015. They even went as far as discussing attacking the fact that Sanders is Jewish in Bible Belt states such as Kentucky and West Virginia. They had no shame. Instead of treating Sanders with impartiality, the DNC exhibited resentful disdain towards him and the thousands of disenfranchised voters he could have brought into the party. But is anybody really surprised by this? If you are, then I've got to say you're naive at best. If anybody thinks that the RNC, too, didn't try to collude against some candidates, you're also naive. So this all led to the resignation of Debbie Wasserman Schultz as the chair of the DNC. But, of course, that resignation would not actually take effect until after the DNC meeting in Philadelphia. She had to have her last time in the spotlight before leaving, of course. Within hours of the resignation notification by Wasserman Schultz, though, she was given a high-profile position in the Hillary Clinton campaign. The official statement from the Clinton campaign made no mention at all of the email scandal, but it did say, quote, "There's simply no one better at taking the fight to the Republicans than Debbie, which is why I'm glad that she has agreed to serve as honorary chair of my campaign's 50-state program to gain ground and elect Democrats in every part of the country, and will continue to serve as a surrogate for my campaign nationally in Florida and in other key states." President Obama and Vice President Biden also released glowing statements about Wasserman Schultz following her resignation, neither of which mentioned the DNC emails either. The first sentence of both of these statements talk about how Wasserman Schultz has, quote, "had my back." An odd choice of words, given the reason for her resignation. Bernie Sanders' statement wasn't going to let her get away unscathed, though. In his statement, he said, quote, "Debbie Wasserman Schultz has made the right decision for the future of the Democratic Party. While she deserves thanks for her many years of service, the party now needs new leadership that will open the doors of the party and welcome in working people and young people. The party leadership must also always remain impartial in the presidential nominating process, something which did not occur in this 2016 race." There are even more fascinating details in these tens of thousands of emails, such as evidence of offering positions in the government for campaign donations. This quid pro quo was evident by a spreadsheet column beside the name of donor David Shapira that said simply USPS. Obama nominated Shapira for a position on the USPS Board of Governors last year, but that nomination was held up by congressional Republicans until Shapira finally decided to drop out of the nomination. Now, just prior to these documents being leaked, a class action lawsuit against Wasserman Schultz was brought over alleged misconduct and manipulation of the Democratic primary. These new leaks give even more evidence of that, and it will be interesting to see where this suit goes now. The suit already has thousands of people as part of it, with many more likely to jump on it since anybody who contributed to the Sanders campaign is able to join the suit. After Wasserman Schultz's resignation, she will be replaced in the interim by Donna Brazile, But it's also clear in the emails that Brazil did not care for Sanders and his campaign team either, saying in one email that she wasn't touching a topic, quote, because I will cuss out the Sanders camp. Ignoring for a minute the very childish nature of this comment, it was in reference to the Sanders camp taking issue with adequate representation on the platform committee for the DNC ahead of the convention. And Sanders did have a legitimate issue there, but apparently not according to Donna Brazil. As anyone would guess at this point, after the way Sanders has been treated, he left the Democratic Party and has gone back to being an independent. And who can blame the guy? I certainly don't. Interestingly, when the emails came out, WikiLeaks accused Facebook in a tweet of censorship, saying the Facebook was removing posts that included links to WikiLeaks information. This comes on the heels earlier this year of Facebook workers admitting routinely suppressing conservative news. Facebook Chief Security Officer Alex Stamos tweeted back to WikiLeaks that the issue has been fixed in response to a tweet about Facebook's false positives and its automated system for detecting spam or malicious links. And all of that aside, an image has been going around Facebook with some very interesting tidbits of information, and it makes some interesting hypotheses. Apparently, Wasserman Schultz was Hillary's co-chair back in 2008 when she was running against Obama. This Facebook allegation says that, quote, let's say hypothetically, after losing to Obama, Hillary Clinton wanted to be assured of the nomination in 2016. What better way to lock it down than having your campaign co-chair lead the entire party? For this scenario to be possible, Hillary would have to not only compel the current chair to step down, but also for him to recommend Debbie Wasserman Schultz to lead the Democratic Party as its chair. One would assume that Hillary would need to promise the current chair something in return. The chairman who stepped down and recommended Debbie Wasserman Schultz to succeed him was Tim Kaine, Hillary's vice presidential pick in 2016. Now, of course, this is clearly just speculation, but it certainly makes a lot of things make sense, doesn't it? Look, if anybody is putting their trust in the DNC or the RNC or even the LNC, where I've got several friends that sit on the committee, they are putting their trust in the wrong places. The goals of these committees are nothing more than to get their candidates elected. That's it. While this is a worthy goal, if you have a candidate worth electing, it is not a worthy goal when you don't. A perfect example is this current election in the Libertarian Party. Gary Johnson, who continues to go on any media that will have him, speaking out against the platform of the Libertarian Party. I've talked about a lot of these instances on the show, and many others have done so as well all over the place. But what does the LNC do? It is working to get this guy elected. However, as my friend Tom Knapp has pointed out on his blog at napster.blogspot.com, the LNC has not only the ability, but the duty, in my opinion, to remove Gary Johnson as the LP presidential nominee. Article 14 of the LP bylaws states that the LNC shall respect the convention delegate's selection of presidential nominee, quote, as long as their campaigns are conducted in accordance with the platform of the party. If the campaign isn't conducting itself in accordance with that platform, then, quote, a candidate's nomination may be suspended by a 3/4 vote of the entire membership of the National Committee at a meeting. As Tom asked, quote, does the LNC have any plans to do their job? Their current actions show no indication that they will do their job. They're going to continue supporting the non-libertarian candidacy of Johnson. And I'm afraid that this Johnson candidacy will be the end of the Libertarian Party as we know it. Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In No Shit Sherlock news, the International Criminal Police Organization, better known as Interpol, is now saying that allowing citizens to carry guns in public is an effective way to prevent terror attacks. This is pretty much a no-brainer, but let's see what Interpol had to say. Quote, in an exclusive interview with ABC News, Interpol Secretary General Ronald Noble said there are really only two choices for protecting open societies from attacks like this one on Westgate Mall, where so-called, quote, soft targets are hit. Either create security perimeters around the locations, or allow civilians to carry their own guns to protect themselves. Quote, societies have to think about how they're going to approach the problem, Noble said. Quote, one is to say that we want an armed citizenry. You can see the reason for that. Another is to say the enclaves are so secure that in order to get into the soft target, you're going to have to pass through extraordinary security. Citing a recent call for Al-Qaeda brothers to strike soft targets and to do it in small groups, Noble said law enforcement is now facing a daunting task. In the interview with ABC News, Noble was more blunt and directed his comments to his home country. Quote, ask yourself, if that Westgate terror attack was Denver, Colorado, or if that was Texas, would those guys have been able to spend hours, days, shooting people randomly? Noble said, referring to states with pro-gun traditions. Quote, what I'm saying is it makes police around the world question their views on gun control. It makes citizens question their views on gun control. You have to ask yourself, is an armed citizenry more necessary now than it was in the past with an evolving threat of terrorism? This is something that has to be discussed. He continued with, quote, for me it's a profound question. People are quick to say gun control, people shouldn't be armed, etc., etc. I think they have to ask themselves, where would you have wanted to be? In a city where there was gun control and no citizens armed if you're in a Westgate Mall, or in a place like Denver or Texas? I know where I would rather be. I'd rather be in a U.S. state that has almost no gun control at all, such as New Hampshire. And so now, even Europeans are finally looking for sensible alternatives to stopping terrorism, while here in this country, the gun is being blamed for all of these events. Talk about flipping the script. In We Investigated Ourselves, the 8 LA cops who fired 107 bullets into a truck, nearly killing an innocent woman and her daughter, will have no criminal charges filed against them. The women, Maggie Carranza and Emma Hernandez, were delivering newspapers in the neighborhood when the cops suddenly opened fire on them. Carranza suffered cuts from flying glass, and Hernandez was shot twice in the back while trying to protect her daughter. If you recall, this incident happened when former LA cop Christopher Dorner went on a murderous rampage and was being hunted by police officers. One of the people listed in Dorner's manifesto of who he wanted to kill was LAPD Captain Justin Eisenberg. The officers who almost killed these two ladies were guarding Eisenberg's house at the time when Carranza and Hernandez were driving a blue Toyota Tacoma, which in no way resembled the gray Nissan Titan that police were on the lookout for. Nor do two Hispanic women, one of them 71 years old, resemble a large black man in any way. The two women had already received a settlement from the city for $4.2 million, plus $40,000 to replace their bullet-riddled truck. But the officers who committed the act are walking free today. Why are they walking free? Because according to the investigation, since officers were on a heightened alert due to Dorner's violence, their actions can't be held against them. Also because, apparently, the sound of newspapers hitting the driveway sounds just like gunfire. And this led to an inaccurate conclusion by officers. But put yourself in the shoes of these officers. If you were in a heightened state of alert because of, say, burglaries in your neighborhood, you heard some noise that you mistook for gunshots, and you opened fire on two innocent women, what would happen to you? You would be charged and likely spend many, many years in prison. These 8 officers weren't even charged. Yes, there is a double standard when it comes to police. In even more police violence news, an unarmed man, Charles Kinsey, was shot by Miami police even after he laid down on the pavement and put his hands in the air. Kinsey, a behavioral therapist who was trying to help an autism patient, says he was shot in the leg by cops responding to the scene. The autistic man was holding only a toy truck during the incident. Quote, it was like a mosquito bite, and when it hit me, I'm like, I still got my hands up in the air, and I said, no, I just got shot. And I'm saying, sir, why did you shoot me? Kinsey recalled. Quote, and his words back to me were, I don't know. The cop had no idea. Kinsey's attorney, Hilton Napoleon, said his client heard another officer ask why he opened fire. Quote, the shooting officer said he didn't know why he shot him, Napoleon said. Quote, there is no justification, heightened alert or not, to shoot an unarmed man lying on the ground with his hands in the air who is telling you that no one has a gun and that the person here is autistic, Napoleon added. He is outraged that Kinsey was handcuffed and was left on the road until paramedics arrived 20 minutes later. Kinsey, who works at the Mactown Panther Group homes, said the man with autism ran away from the home, and he was attempting to calm him down when the police encounter unfolded. Quote, "I was really more worried about him than myself," Kinsey told the local affiliate. "I was thinking as long as I had my hands up, they're not going to shoot me. This is what I'm thinking. They're not going to shoot me. Wow, was I wrong." The police department, several days later, came out and said the officer was trying to actually shoot the autistic man, not Kinsey, when he fired. His reason for shooting? Another officer, apparently, in a radio transmission, suggested the autistic man was loading his toy truck. Gun. The officer in question fired 3 rounds from a rifle from only about 50 yards away. This decorated SWAT officer, apparently, and thankfully, is a terrible fucking shot. And in finally getting it right news, New Hampshire Attorney General Joseph Foster announced that Trooper Joseph Flynn of the Massachusetts State Police and Trooper Andrew Monaco of the New Hampshire State Police had been arrested and charged with simple assault stemming from their use of force in connection with the arrest of Richard Simone back in May. Simone was wanted on several felony warrants for assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, larceny, and failure to stop for police, when he again failed to stop for police on Holden, Mass. Instead, Simone led police on an hour-long chase, hitting a speed of 100 miles per hour while weaving through several towns in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Simone finally stopped when 2 of his tires blew out on a dead-end street in Nashua, New Hampshire. News helicopters following the chase questioned whether officers used excessive force when arresting Simone. He can be seen exiting his truck with his hands up and attempting to lie on his stomach when several officers approach with their guns drawn and jump on him, hitting him several times. He appears to be surrendering while officers continue to strike him. Simone was taken to the hospital and treated for minor injuries. Trooper Flynn is charged with 2 counts of simple assault, and Trooper Monaco is charged with 3 counts of simple assault. They were released on $2,000 personal recognizance and $3,000 personal recognizance, respectively. Because they were both on-duty law enforcement officers at the time these acts were committed, the charges are subject to an enhanced penalty pursuant to New Hampshire state law. Yes, you heard that right, folks. In New Hampshire, there is a law that states that you are subject to, quote, extended term of imprisonment if you are an on-duty law enforcement officer, quote, at the time that he or she committed or attempted to commit any of the crimes defined in RSA 631. Now that RSA 631 includes assault, domestic violence, reckless conduct, criminal threatening, and several other crimes. New Hampshire, it's like this too. In masshole news, Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey banned the sale of all new assault weapons, effective immediately. In an article written by A.G. Healey in the Boston Globe, she said, quote, the Massachusetts assault weapons ban mirrors the federal ban Congress allowed to expire in 2004. It prohibits the sale of specific weapons like the Colt AR-15 and AK-47 and explicitly bans copies or duplicates of those weapons. But gun manufacturers have taken it upon themselves to define what a copy or duplicate weapon is. They market state-compliant copycat versions of their assault weapons to Massachusetts buyers. They sell guns without a flash suppressor or folding or telescopic stock, for example, small tweaks that do nothing to limit the lethalness of the weapon. That will end now. On Wednesday, July 20th, we're sending a directive to all gun manufacturers and dealers that makes clear that the sale of these copycat assault weapons is illegal in Massachusetts. With this directive, we will ensure that we get the full protection intended when lawmakers enacted our assault weapons ban, not the watered-down version of those protections offered by gun manufacturers. The directive specifically outlines 2 tests to determine what constitutes a copy or duplicate of a prohibited weapon. If a gun's operating system is essentially the same as that of a banned weapon, or if the gun has components that are interchangeable with those of a banned weapon, it's a copy or duplicate, and it is illegal. Assault weapons prohibited under our current laws cannot be altered in any way to make their sale or possession legal in Massachusetts. And this brings up several points. The assault weapons ban was specifically designed to define an assault weapons ban with items such as a flash suppressor or telescoping stock, So gun manufacturers started taking those pieces off of assault weapons so they wouldn't be classified as assault weapons. It's the unintended consequence of the law. Now, basically what they're trying to say is that that's trying to skirt the law, and then now that's illegal. Give me a fucking break, people. What do you want? And now they're saying that if a gun's operating system is essentially the same as that of a banned weapon, it's illegal. What does that mean? Does that mean that all semi-automatic rifles are now going to be banned because the operating system is essentially the same? I mean, this is just asinine. But gun stores in Massachusetts have already pulled all of their inventory of modern sporting rifles off their shelves completely. Thankfully, this new ban does not affect guns already owned by residents, at least not yet. But California said the exact same thing several years ago when they banned magazines over 10 rounds. As you heard on the last episode of this show, now California has rescinded the grandfathering and is requiring that those magazines purchased before the ban also be turned in. Is this going to happen to those grandfathered rifles in Massachusetts in a few years? I'd be willing to put money on it. And I would be getting the fuck out of Massachusetts if I lived there, that's for sure. In freedom of speech news, a Pennsylvania man who was arrested for hanging an American flag upside down has received a settlement in his civil rights lawsuit against the city for more than $55,000. Allegheny Township finally approved letting their insurance company pay the money to Joshua Brubaker. Now, this goes back to May of 2014 when Brubaker said that he was standing up for his American Indian heritage when he hung the upside-down flag outside of his home with the letters AIM spray painted on it. AIM stands for American Indian Movement. The flag was to protest the plans to route the proposed Keystone Pipeline through the site of the Wounded Knee confrontation in South Dakota. Brubaker had harmed no one and was merely exercising his First Amendment right to free speech when the Allegheny Township Police descended on his home. Quote, I was offended by it when I first saw it. I had an individual stop here at the station, a female who was in the military, and she was very offended by it, said Allegheny Township Police Assistant Chief L.J. Berg. Berg took down the flag and charged Brubaker with desecration and insults to the American flag. As if you can insult a piece of cloth, are you kidding me? Luckily for Brubaker, a judge would later dismiss all the charges against him, as he should. And now Brubaker's $55,000 richer. God forbid, though, that an officer of the law be offended, for fuck's sake. Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support.
Talk the talk. Do you walk the walk?
There are going to be some big things coming to the Lava Flow Studios in the next few months. As many of you already know, there has already been a second podcast going for a while now under the Pax Libertas Productions banner, which is a productions company I created when I started the Lava Flow. The second podcast is called the Free Coast Freecast, and it is me and a few of my Free State Project friends doing news, commentary, events, and history from a liberty perspective for the local Seacoast community of New Hampshire. When I started doing the Lava Flow, I immediately knew that I would want there to be more podcasts like it. Podcasts that bring great content in a condensed format with not a lot of fluff. This is why I created Pax Libertas Productions right from the start. Pax Libertas Productions was created with the concept of growth in mind, and I'm finally getting to the point where that makes sense now. Since the Lava Flow is now going strong, and we've brought in enough revenue to start producing the Lava Spurt episodes as well, and since the Free Coast Freecast is going strong at 11 episodes, it's time to bring some more content with some new content creators. I've already begun discussing this with a couple of people, and I'm hoping to have between 2 and 4 new podcasts coming out before 2017. These will be completely new podcasts with completely new hosts that you've likely never heard before. Each of these new podcasts will be reaching a new niche that is likely to be either underserved or ignored completely. I'm looking for the right fit between content producers and niche subjects, and I'm looking at several different subjects to start off with. I'm looking at producing shows on Christian libertarianism, peaceful parenting, agorism, an unofficial podcast following the happenings and the events of the Free State Project, and even an unofficial podcast following the happenings and the history of the Libertarian Party. I'm also looking at other types of shows as well, including one that will follow New Hampshire law closely to bring information about changes in historical perspective about laws in New Hampshire, and even about legislatures in New Hampshire. And one that will be a Libertarian Weekly Roundup that talks about new Libertarian articles, blog posts, videos, or podcast content from the previous week all in one package. I've got a lot of other ideas as well, and I'm very wide open to your thoughts and ideas too. What kind of podcast content do you want to hear? As we get further into this project, you're going to begin to see more things coming as well, including an aggregate podcast feed where you can get all of the Pax Libertas production podcasts in a single place. There's also going to be a live stream set up with the content playing 24/7. And there will be a phone app for the network where you can contact the network, listen to the shows, and get information about all the different hosts. One thing that's going to set this network apart from other Liberty audio aggregates is that we will be focusing first and foremost on quality content and quality productions. If you're sick of sitting through an hour and a half or 2-hour podcasts that has about 30 minutes of actual content surrounded by a bunch of fluff, inside jokes, and bad personalities, then this network and the shows on it are going to be right up your alley. I'm looking for a few good men and women to help make this podcast network the premier source for Liberty media in the world. My goal is to find podcast personalities who can present the best quality content available in the Liberty arena and get them in front of a microphone. I'm going to officially start taking applications and vetting potential podcast personalities in the next couple of months, but if you're interested in talking to me about it now, let me know and I'll get you on the list. You can catch me on Facebook or on Twitter, or you can just shoot me an email at Roger, that's RODGER, at thelavaflow.com. What I'll provide for each show will be the editing of the content to make the content producer sound awesome, and to put it in a pleasing production that makes it easy to listen to. I will help get all of the equipment that the content producers may need, such as microphones or mixers or anything else. And I'll do all of the front and back end work of setting up the show, a website, artwork, feeds, sound beds, intros, outros, whatever, so that the personality only has to focus on the content and nothing more. Speaking of this project, I did an interview with Joel Valenzuela about this on his website, The Desert Links, just last week. It turned out really well. I have a link to the interview in the show notes to this episode at thelavaflow.com/42. Go check it out. The official start of this project will be immediately following the Free Coast Festival in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, the weekend of September 15th through the 18th. With keynote speaker Julie Borowski during dinner on a huge boat ride on the river, this is an event that you do not want to miss. The Sunday morning event to close out the weekend is an entrepreneur workshop where several people are going to go head-to-head on pitching a new business idea to hopefully win a prize. Last year, if I recall correctly, I think Chris David won the Entrepreneur Workshop prize with his pitch for using the Swarmwise technique in his free Uber campaign. I'm going to be shooting for that prize this year with Pax Libertas Productions, so wish me luck. Come out to the Free Coast Festival yourself and check it out. You can get more information and buy your tickets to the festival at freecoast.org/festival. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite potluck partner, Jessica, for her help with this show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on this show, go to thelavaflow.com/42. I have a new review for the show this week. B. Ulysses had this to say, quote, "Terrific podcast for the intelligent minority. Listening to news and opinion in the mainstream media is pretty brutal. It seems everyone is on one side or the other, with no explanation of what is actually happening. This podcast, however, brings a new perspective, filled with research tidbits and, of course, the opinion of the host. Terrific podcast, well-structured, great insight." Thank you so much, B. Ulysses, for that awesome review. iTunes steers people to this podcast based on the number of subscribers and the number of positive reviews that I get, so every single positive review that you give me helps get this show in front of more people. Go to thelavaflow.com/iTunes to give me a rating and review today if you can. A quick shout out to Steven, who used my Coinbase affiliate link to open a new Coinbase wallet and purchased at least $100 of Bitcoin. Because of that, he and I both received $10 in free Bitcoin. You can do the same thing by going to thelavaflow.com/Coinbase and signing up today. Thanks, Stephen. I don't have any new supporters of the show this week, so I'm still at $127.50 per episode, or just over halfway to my next level, where I will be bringing you a full 30-minute episode of The Lava Flow every single week. If you want more of The Lava Flow and to keep this show ad-free, exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per-episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon or Bitcoin through Coinbase. There are monthly costs associated with doing the show, and I need additional equipment to continue making the show better for you every single episode and to expand to even more content. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.